Welcome to the Heroic Minds podcast, where we uncover the heroic stories of individuals battling through adversity and rising to the top of professional sport, business, and life. Uncovering the characteristics, the secrets, the tactics to become the hero of your own story, because it is adversity that maximizes human potential. Welcome back to the Heroic Minds podcast. On today's episode, we have Greg Westlake, Team Canada Sledge hockey captain. He's known as someone you don't want to find yourself with in the corner of the ice. Off the ice, Greg is a bit of everything. He's a philanthropist, he's in broadcasting, he's an entrepreneur. He's also a world record holder on a hand bike and has set a world record in the human-powered speed challenge, which we'll talk about in this episode. He's also trying to grow the game of sledge hockey beyond just people playing sledge hockey because of some sort of inability or disability. He's even trying to grow the game for people that can play stand-up hockey no problem. In this episode, we talk about Greg's journey from standing hockey to having to come to terms with changing over to sledge hockey. He shares personal stories of how he's had conversations with people in the hospital that are now Olympians. And he was there for that turning moment or that inspirational moment that has allowed them to believe that they can still continue to play sport regardless of their situation. We dive into other topics such as leadership, accountability, which was a big one I enjoyed, and why Greg has an ulterior motive in life when it comes to being a captain or being in broadcasting even. I'll leave a bit of a cliffhanger there, and you can hear in this episode of why he has an ulterior motive with those situations. In conclusion, an incredible, inspirational story of one of Greg's past roommates and very close friends who passed away from the same cancer as Terry Fox. It was an unbelievable story of his preparation for death and his willingness to continue inspiring others, even though he knew the end was near. It's a story that I'm glad Greg shared because Matt Cook's legacy now lives on. Before we get going, as always, remember to check out truelocal.ca. High quality meat, individually packaged, chosen by you, shipment date chosen by you, exact meat chosen by you, shipped to your doorstep on dry ice so it can stay frozen for 4 days. So if you're out, don't worry, that box stays there looking pretty and it's ready for when you arrive. That's truelocal.ca. Use my discount code HeroicMinds25, all capital letters, to get $25 off a regular size box and $10 off a personal size box. All right, here we go. It's what you know kind of thing because what you went through happened when you were so young. So I guess first off, what exactly is it you went through as a young boy? And then also why it's almost normal now?
Yeah, I mean, first off, thanks for having me. This is it's super cool, and it's your story is one that I have a lot of respect for, and we've been in similar circles for a long time, but haven't actually had the chance to actually sit down, have a coffee, and a chat. So I appreciate that. For me, it's I say this all the time. That it's so weird coming from somebody in like the Paralympic world, and somebody that lives with a physical disability. But I think I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I think that the fact that I kind of dealt with some adversity at such a young age. I had both my feet amputated when I was 18 months old, and like you said, it's all I've ever known. And I've spent the better part of the last 13 years of my life kind of going around, and I do hospital visits, and I meet cancer patients and people who've been in car accidents and gone through some pretty traumatic events, and it's harder for them because they've had a leg, and then they have to relearn how to do everything. But for me, everything I learned to do for the first time, I still do to this day. I had my feet amputated at 18 months old, but I learned to skate when I was 3 at Mom and Tots. Just like anybody else would. My mom and I would go on like Sunday mornings and skate, and I go for a donut afterward. And it's all I ever knew. And for me, it was a good way of making friends as well. It was just getting involved in sport and trying to be active. And I think being the youngest of 4 kids was a great thing for me as well. Just because I was always trying to keep up with them and do what they're doing. And it's amazing when you're a child, your brain doesn't know any different. My brain didn't feel sorry, but 3-year-old Greg didn't feel sorry for himself. I had more insecurities when I was 23 than I did at 3, because you just don't know it, and you don't know you're being judged. You don't know people are watching you because you're out there on 2 artificial legs trying to learn to skate. So no, I always felt like it was a blessing. I got to attack everything right away from birth, and I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Doing everything from such a young age that you talk about playing hockey, standing hockey before, and roller hockey. So how is it, whether it's from a mechanistic point of view, did you do all that without your feet?
Yeah, so there's compromises. And I think that when you're dealing with something physically, mentally, I do believe there's ways to do what you want to do. So if you love hockey but you're missing a hand, there was a guy that played in the OHL that was missing a hand. His name escapes me right now. He found a way. And he probably knew deep down he wasn't going to make the NHL, but he took it as far as he could take it. And I've always had a lot of respect for people who just show up. I always liked people. I didn't care if you got into a scrap at hockey. I didn't care if you won. I just kind of liked that you had my back and that you showed up, and stuff like that. That's always been my mindset. So when I look at was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. But I also knew at a very young age I wasn't going to make the NHL into artificial legs. Like, yeah, my head was there and I wanted to, and like every kid, I'm playing road hockey and I'm scoring the Stanley Cup winning goal, and when I grew up, I wasn't thinking about sledge hockey gold medal. I was thinking about Stanley Cup. And at that time, even though you're young, you realize it's probably not going to happen. So like I think I played like one game of single A hockey, and just the fact that I could get to the lowest level of rep hockey for me onto artificial legs was a huge win for me. And like that's what like people don't understand is I remember when we got that phone call from like the coach at single A that was like, hey, we're gonna call him up for a game from his house league team. That was a big deal for me, and to a lot of kids that wouldn't have meant anything. But for me, I was just trying to be out there, compete, and my goal with hockey from day one was always just to take it as far as I could take it. But you got to have a little bit of self-awareness and kind of realize what's realistic, and then attack it full on. And it wasn't until I was about 15, 16 years old that I think my parents really saw how deeply passionate I was about the game of hockey. It was just all I wanted to do. And then they brought the idea of sledge hockey to me, and I think they brought that to me with that parental foresight of, we see how competitive you are, we see how hard you work in practice. Why don't we apply this to something where you can really take it all the way? And that's where I appreciate them for having that foresight, because I never would have got into it on my own.
Right. And so that conversation for you, or the mental kind of conversation you had with yourself of saying, I now have to transition from standing hockey to sledge hockey. How did that go in your mind, that transition? Because I'm sure it wasn't easy to give up also that group of friends that you saw every day to now.
You're 100%. So for me, it was a maturation thing. The whole me getting into sledge hockey had nothing to do with me not having feet. I just didn't want to play. I didn't want to play a disabled sport. I was going to school and hanging out with my friends that I was playing hockey with, and I didn't want to give that up. I just enjoyed that. I would have rather played stand-up house league hockey than Team Canada sledge hockey at the age of 14. But then as I got older, I had to get out of my comfort zone, and I had to meet some of the athletes that were on the sledge hockey team, and then I started to kind of be sold on it. I went to one of their practices and just watched, and there were some guys out on the ice that could shoot the puck. A guy named Billy Bridges could shoot the puck, like 75 miles per hour with one hand. And then I remember seeing some other guy who used a wheelchair, a guy named Brad Bowden, and his arms were just huge. He was jacked. He was this, he looked like an all-American football player, and he was out there playing sledge hockey. And so once I kind of met those guys, I was like, okay. And then I saw some of the hits and saw it was full contact. And then so over time I started to open up to that idea, but I had to meet the guys, and there was a human element as well that I really appreciated. I love playing hockey. I love doing all that stuff that goes into it, but meeting the guys who had beat cancer, guys who had served our country in the military, guys who have done all sorts of, been through adverse situations in their life. And I felt like every guy in that sledge hockey team that I met at 16 had that decision at some point in their life. Do you want to go down the direction of, you can feel sorry for yourself, you can drink booze, you can, crawl into this pit of despair, or you can go to the gym and you can work out, you can get on the ice, and you can be healthy, and you can be a role model and ambassador. Once I started meeting those guys at 16, 17 years old, that's what sold me on playing sledge hockey. And so 13, 10-year-old Greg, I wouldn't have played. There's no chance you could have got me out there. And then as I got a little older, a little more mature, and I went and met the guys and so just got around it and fell in love with what they were doing out there, that's what sold me on playing the sport. But it was a mental maturation process of just growing up and maturing more so than it was, hey, you have a disability, you like hockey, you play sledge hockey. Right. It wasn't that lineal.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Oh, okay. Because again, you don't know that unless you ask that question, right? That's why I thought that's a cool process. In that, I guess that whole like it seemed, talking to you, it seems like you wanted to do something, you did it. And the more people I have on the podcast that have been through different situations of different types of disabilities, whatever it be, that's not even really, I've lucked out with the people I've been able to meet, but a lot of it, similar to you, is, we had someone that was blind on the podcast and they wanted to do something, they did it. It wasn't it was just find a way to do it, like you said. And beyond sledge hockey, there are so many other things we talked about that you're doing too, and we've got lots to go here. But I thought, what are other things that someone might think listening right now?
I tried everything growing up. Like I was a big, sports was my way to connect in communities, and I moved a lot. I was born in Vancouver. I grew up in Ottawa. Then I moved to Oakville, and I always moved at like tough ages. Like when I came to Oakville, I was in like grade 5, and so it's like, kids have their friend groups, and they're mean. I got a lot of fights on the playground because, like, for me, like when I was a kid, and this is the dumbest. Like, they don't think this way if you're listening. But when I was like 15 and I moved to Oakville, literally my train of thought on the playground was, if I could beat you in a fight, like if I could take you out, how am I disabled and you're not? Like I'm physically more imposing than you. And that's the dumbest way to think, and I don't do that now. But like literally when I was just a little kid, I'd be on the playground and like for acceptance, like I would like literally fight for acceptance. And so I just did everything. And so that's my segue into, I love jiu-jitsu, I love kickboxing. I always liked the martial arts, I like the discipline aspect of it. So when I moved to Oakville, the first 2 things I enrolled in were hockey and jiu-jitsu. And so I did that here, but then I paddled for a little bit. But again, for me, I'm so lucky, and I get really awkward talking about myself, and I'm going to do this for the next however long we talk. But I'm going to talk about teammates I've had and people I've met more than I'm going to talk about myself. But again, because I was born this way, I got fitted for 2 artificial legs, and I walk around pretty normally, and I live a very normal life. And when I put on a pair of jeans and a shirt and walk out my front door, I don't walk down the main street of Oakville with people staring at me. People don't know. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I have. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a fact. And I'm always amazed at the mental toughness in people I've met through sport and Paralympic sport especially. To me, there's a mental toughness there when you talk about, you wanted to do it, so you did it. Mm-hmm. You don't worry about what's in between. You just get from A to B. And for me, my A to B isn't so hard. I wake up in the morning, I put on my 2 legs, and I go to the gym. But I put on a pair of pants and nobody even gives me a second look. Right. But I've been around people who are in wheelchairs that for them just to get on a bench press and work on that, they have to transfer from their wheelchair to a bench. Then they use a strap and strap their legs down to a bench. And then they do their, 3 sets. Mm-hmm. The amount of effort it takes someone like that, plus people are staring at them because why is that guy in a wheelchair in the gym? And that's where the mental toughness comes in. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed by that. Like the people who really have obstacles to get from A to B, and then on top of that, people are staring at them because we're still trying to push over this stigma of, why would you be in a gym if you're in a wheelchair? Why would you be at a hockey rink if you're missing a limb? And we're slowly, getting to that point where it's not weird to see a bunch of girl hockey players at the rink wanting to be the next Haley Wickenheiser. Right. It's not weird to see a bunch of disabled people at a hockey rink anymore, trying to make it big in sledge hockey. And we're slowly getting there where people aren't looking at you going, why is that person here? Mm-hmm. And we're slowly getting there. But when I grew up, I never saw a lot of girls at the rink, unless they were playing ringette. Exactly. Disabled people at the rink. But we're getting there, and it takes time. It's a process. Right. Yeah. Have you had any experiences where you've felt realized an impact that you've had on someone because they've seen you and thought, if Greg can do it, and you've inspired someone to play? Are there any situations specifically like that you've had? And those are the cool stories where you can kind of pay it forward a little bit, and it's not like, it is a little self-serving because it feels good. I find I just sleep a little better at night when I know that I've kind of passed on some wisdom to some other people. But I do a lot of hospital visits, and so real quick, just a couple cool examples. One would be a girl named Michelle Salt, and she was Canada's first ever female snowboarder that we sent to the Paralympics, and I met her in a hospital in Calgary the day after she lost her leg in a motorcycle accident. And she was a fit girl. She was a fitness model. Just was in this horrible motorcycle accident. And I knew one of her good friends really well. And I was in Edmonton at the time visiting a buddy of mine who had cancer. And she called me and just said, hey, my friend was in a motorcycle accident. Would you mind coming up? And I had a rental car, so I jumped in my car and I drove from Edmonton to Calgary. And literally just this bedside conversation that I had with her 4 years later, she was our first ever Paralympian that we sent to the games. And so we now have that connection for life. For life, we'll always have that bond. And if I bump into her in Calgary or Toronto, we're always going to have a coffee, have a hug, and see how we're doing. So that's always cool. And then for me, the other cool connections are, now that I'm getting old and gray and wondering what I'm doing with hockey, there's literally kids trying out for the team now that I met when they were 13 at like some of the development camps I used to work at, where I'd go to the East Coast. I'd always go to like little pockets in Canada where a lot of the programs didn't reach. Because if you want to get on a sled and try sledge hockey, it's pretty easy in Calgary and Vancouver and Toronto. But if you live in, small town East Coast, you don't get on as well. Mm-hmm. And so I used to do a summer hockey camp that was at in Wolfville at Acadia University, where my brother used to play, actually. And so I do a sledge hockey camp out of there. And so it's weird for me when some of those kids who were 13 that I was teaching are now trying out for the team, and I now have to like treat them as a man and meet them at a tryout camp. Mm-hmm. I find that a weird dynamic for me, because part of me is just so happy that they're there. I gotta go take their head off. But I always find that funny, but it's a lot of fun because they pursued it. And so whether you did something or not to guide them in that path, it's cool that they're going through those experiences, and I can kind of look in the crystal ball and see the fun that they're going to have and the enjoyment that they're getting out of the game and the people they're meeting and the travel they're doing. I take a lot of pride in spreading that. That's
so cool. And the other thing I learned is that, and I wouldn't have thought this from, again, the outside looking in, and the more research you do, or the more time you put into something, you realize things, and it's that not everyone has the same issue or same disability in sledge hockey, and I didn't take enough time to think about that. And I wonder, what are some of the teammates you had, or maybe even opponents that have been through different things than you, that you wouldn't realize, wow, and they're still able to play sledge hockey. Like I feel like in some of the images, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looked as if some people had one leg, some people had two, some people had even less. They were above the knee. I don't know if that's a thing. Yeah. I just wondered, what are the vast differences of disabilities there?
Well, it's a crazy world, because on an international scale, I'm going to go off on a tangent here.
I love it.
It's actually pretty interesting to get into, because you look at before the Sochi Games in Russia. Russia has this reputation. We don't have gay people in Russia. We don't have disabled people in Russia. We can't host the Paralympics. We don't have disabled people. That's what they said. So they didn't want to host the Paralympics because there were no disabled people there. I went over and did a site visit there. It's the least accessible place I've ever been to in my life. Wow. I can't imagine. It's one of those times. It's one of those trips and one of those Paralympic games you go to, and you hope you left a legacy there of maybe they'll build more ramps. Maybe they'll do things thinking about their whole population in mind. But they had the Paralympics against their will. It was a successful games. Their Russian sledge hockey team won the silver medal. We won't go into the whole doping scandal. But, it went from them basically saying, we don't have disabled people here, we can't host the games, to, well, you actually won the medal count. You had more skiers win medals. You had all this. So it's like, no, you actually had that the whole time, but it took the games come to your country to really rise it up and give it some of that notoriety. And now they're a proud Paralympic nation.
Okay.
And it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah.
And going back to the hockey question, the best way to think about sledge hockey is just if you have something that will prevent you from playing stand-up hockey, you're in. And ultimately, when I take off my two artificial feet and get into my sled, if I get into a sled with you tomorrow, I actually have a huge advantage. Because upper body, we're similar, but I'm way lighter out there. I'm way faster, I'm more agile, I can turn quicker. And so I have an advantage over any able-bodied person that wants to jump in a sled and try it. And the amount of my friends, our friends, who have asked me, like, man, you got to line up a day where we can all come play. Because we do a lot of events with junior teams and midget teams and university teams across the country, and we do a lot of just try-it days, where we'll do like for charity, we'll invite all their fans out and they all get in a sled and we do a hardest shot, a fastest skater. They love it. Like, they have so much fun out there, and it's all the able-bodied guys out there trying it, and then every guy gets off, like, man, my back's killing me, my arms are so sore. Yeah, it's a good workout. And it's one of those ones where, again, if you just got rid of stigmas, if you got rid of like what people thought about, if you and just 9 able-bodied buddies wanted to go play some quick 5-on-5 sledge hockey, you'd have a great time. You'd get a good workout in, and it would just be something different to do. And I love it. And companies do it for corporate events now, and it's really growing on that front. But yeah, it is so different. And you play against people that our double leg amputees. You play against people. The only thing with sledge hockey is it is at the international high end level. It's really just lower body. Like it would be very tough to be missing a hand and play at a high level for sledge hockey, which is too bad. But I mean, I think there's a sport and a way to do things for everybody. But for sledge hockey, it's every type of disability, but it's really just stuff that affects your lower body.
Right.
Otherwise, it'd be very tough out there.
That's cool. And when you say there's other events for other people, could you think of another event that you could be, maybe you haven't practiced it, but you believe there's a chance you could be high level at that maybe you haven't pursued because hockey's filled the time? But
yeah, I think about that a lot because I love it. But it's because I've had people ask me that they're like, why don't you try another sport? Because you see it with women in Paralympic sport all the time where they're dual sport. Haley was a softball player before she really hit it big with hockey. And so you see it all the time. But like, I'm so laser focused on hockey that literally, like, I don't want another medal. If you told me, hey, Greg, you can go to the games, represent your country, and come fourth in hockey, or you can go win a gold in this sport, like, that's not the medal I want. I want that medal. I want that hockey medal. Nothing else will make me happy. And so I always knew that at a young age. Like, it has to be hockey, and it has to, like, I didn't want to just play sports for the sake of playing. Like, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so that's what I'm passionate about. But I don't know. Like, I like all sports. Like, I love golf. I do think that if you're going to take up a second sport, I enjoy doing an individual sport. Like, I've just, not that you get let down by teammates, but, sometimes they raise you up. But you're always relying on other people, good and bad. When you're having a shit game and your buddy goes out and scores 3 goals and you win, okay, well, this isn't so bad. But then there's times where you think you're playing great and you don't get the result you want, or maybe guys aren't training as hard as you expect them to train, and there's that letdown of man, I was counting on you. Where's that accountability? So when I do get a chance to play other sports, I love golf, I love paddling, I love kayaking. I'd rather just go hit a heavy bag and break a sweat and hit the speed bag. Like, I enjoy kind of putting on my headphones, being alone with my thoughts. And just doing that. I'd rather jump on a cardio machine for an hour and just think. And that's like my me time. And so, no, I'm either team sport, hockey focused, or I want nothing to do with teammates, and I just want to, anything I can put on some music and kind of just self-improve. That's what I love about golf, is it's so hard. Yeah. But, it's such an improvement. So I just go out there, I'll put my headphones on the range, and maybe have a beer or two in the summertime. Just enjoy it, man. And the culture, too. No sport in the world gives more back than golf. Think about all the charity golf tournaments you do and all that, True. How much money is raised every summer on the golf course. I want to be a part of that. And so that's another reason, too, is it really is kind of low-key a great way to give back to so many people.
Cool. And on the leadership side of things, before we get into the team where you just touched on, the team side of stuff, another interesting thing is in many articles you're a part of, there are quotes about the way you play hockey, and we could draw some comparisons to some.
Really nice.
Oh yeah, and in quotations, one of them was, "There are people in the Sledge world who hate him," is one of the quotes, and I wondered,
everyone,
your approach to the game and how you play, and then also going into you saying hitting and stuff. Someone outside the game, I don't know how that works. I'm sure there are a lot of people, whether they're hockey fans or not, it's interesting to hear. Really, the game's very similar, and from the research I've done, there's one rule that's different, and it's the way you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess.
And that's just when you use the front of your sled to really initiate contact. But I mean, what you find is as you meet a lot of guys, like, I'm not a big guy, and I'm not small, but I'm just kind of average size, and. But in, like, the sledge hockey world, there's a lot of beasts on the sled, and so I think when people watch it, the first 5 minutes it looks visually different, but then eventually you kind of get lost in the fact that it's another hockey game. And so I always look at people's reactions in the stands when I'm not playing, whenever there's a big hit, and at first I think people are very taken back. Why are these disabled guys hitting each other so hard? And then over time you realize, like, it has all the makings of conflict. Two people want something, and one can get it. So that's where conflict happens.
Okay.
So that's where the hitting, and that's where all that. I mean, especially when you look at, our games against the U.S., especially as the years have progressed, they're really physical games, but for us they have to be, because they're so much faster than us. And so when you game plan to beat the US, I'm not out there there's no real fighting in it, and so it's not so barbaric, but it's to slow them down. You have to own the neutral zone, and the best way to own the neutral zone is to cut them off of the boards and lay a good check and turn the puck the other way. And so honestly, just from a strategic standpoint, the only way you can beat the Americans is to play a really physical, step up in the neutral zone, get the puck back. It's the only way to beat them. If you let them come at you and wind up their speed, you're in your own zone all night. And
wow.
A large part of that is just like any other hockey game, that there's real strategy there. And when you read those quotes, for me, a lot of that was when I was a lot younger, because I wasn't good. and I was 17 and I wanted to play minutes, so I would just, every game I would just say, okay, that's their best player, I'm going to go mess with him all night, and then we'll see what happens. but I just wanted to win hockey games, and so that's where a lot of that stuff comes from. But sometimes it's just a necessity in a full contact sport. So when you get hit in the glass and you get that give a little bit, you can kind of brace for impact. And for us, sometimes it's hard because it's a cement wall. Yeah. So some of the boards give a little bit, but the odd time we'll go play like in an older barn, and it just has like that concrete school boards. Yeah. And so those are hard for us because your shoulders get just no give in there. So it's I've separated both shoulders once each.
Wow.
And just a lot of stitches and scars and stuff like that. But it's it just depends on the rink, really, just how much to give the boards have.
Right. Yeah. That depends on how much you're going to be willing to make contact that night. Is what.
Or if I'm going to muck it up in the corner, or maybe I'll be a slot guy, just hit me up high.
And on the leadership side, biggest thing you learned at the Olympics where you didn't medal, what was, I guess, the biggest takeaway from that? Because obviously the winning was amazing, but on the flip side of things, what was the biggest thing you learned as a leader there?
Man, no one's had a more weird career than I have. I'll tell you right now, I have had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I really have, and everything from I want a gold medal, I want a silver medal, I want a bronze medal, I haven't placed. I've literally done everything you can do. And then at World Championships, I've done everything from not place to score the winning goal with 9 seconds left of a gold medal game. And so I've had all of that. And from a leadership side, man, I don't know, because sometimes you're looking for those answers in sport. Why did that happen? I worked so hard. And when I look back on my career, there's championships I've won where I honestly maybe didn't put in the effort that I did later in my career. Like the last 4 to 6 years of my career, 8 years, I was laser focused. I was in the gym. I always had good body fat. I always had good testing scores, and I was so engaged in it and so involved in trying to win. And sometimes we didn't get it. We just didn't get it done. And then I remember there was times where I wasn't taking it seriously. I'd show up and score 3 goals and we win, and so it's all good. Winning fixes everything. Yeah. But I think a lot about just how do you sleep at night, and it's just a bit of a metaphor, but like, are you happy? And when I think back on kind of the highs and the lows of team success, I could handle losing if I gave it everything I had, if I showed up, if I just showed up, if I knew it was going to be tough, but I still went to the gym, I still got to practice, I still went and left it all out there, I could sleep at night, win or lose. But those ones, win or lose, where maybe you didn't give it your all, and that's where from a leadership side you can challenge guys, because I just know what it's like to be the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and I can deal with being on the low side. It still sucks, and there's still an adaptation period after that game's over, but I can handle it if I know that I really gave an honest day's work every day. And that's why I think I got put in some leadership roles, was I just worked so hard at practice. I was that dork that like just skate a lap guys, and guys are kind of coasting, and I busted it. I busted ass that final lap every practice, and so I was a bit of a practice nerd. Guys hated practicing against me. I'd slash you. Every drill was game like for me, and that's what got me into some leadership roles. And all of that just stems from I know what it's like to win. I know what it's like to lose. And I just, the only way I sleep at night is just knowing that I gave it everything I had. And that's where all that comes from. That's wicked. I see why you were given the letters that you were able to wear at that level. I'm fired up talking about it. Yeah. I'm going to go to the rink right now. Has all of that now changed? So the experience from the adversities you dealt with from a young age, and now don't appear as too much of an adversity today, and then what you've learned in sport, your outlook now on life as there's tons of moving pieces in your life,
maybe you don't even notice how that plays into your mindset today, but what is your approach to life as you're now figuring out what it is you're going to end up doing? So it's interesting hearing Greg talk about accountability the way he does, and it's so simple. He just puts things in his path or in his routine that he knows will trigger him to be in the right state of mind. It's almost an obligation, a good obligation, a healthy obligation. And his examples he gives are his girlfriend, his dog, having a healthy breakfast. As you can see, it doesn't need to be big, extravagant concepts, but something there that keeps you accountable, that then allows you to make that next decision that keeps you accountable, so it's that ripple effect of I don't even know how you want to put it, proper decision making. I'm not sure. I'm listening to Greg and reflecting on my own life of, that's pretty neat. When I foster dogs and I have that accountability to now get up and walk that dog, when I get back in, whether it's 6 a.m. or 6:15, and maybe could have easily gone back to bed, it's, I'm already up now and I feel good. I just went for a little walk. I'm actually feeling great. So now, boom, that healthy breakfast is now easier to have, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm kind of taking this year, I'm taking this year off hockey. I'm taking this year to kind of figure out, do I miss it to the point of, is this something that I want to pursue until I'm 40? Do I want to be that guy that plays until I literally get told I can't play anymore? Or right now I'm healthy, I feel good every day I wake up, I feel fit, I feel active. Is that a good time to step away? So right now I'm kind of taking this year to figure that out. But, there's so many life lessons through sport, and I read a lot about, military stuff, and there's just something about accountability, and that's where I love having my dog. I love having my girlfriend around, and it's just those little things of because it's just somebody to answer to every morning. What are you doing today? What's this? And so for me, it all starts just wake up and eat something healthy, and it's like just do one thing every day that betters yourself. So right now my mindset's just kind of wake up, get off to a healthy start of your day, to go do something active, and then my mind's in a good spot. And now I'm ready to make phone calls and jump on conference calls and do it. Do I want to chair a charity golf tournament? Do I and so for me it's just about kind of finding that healthy balance, because I wasn't healthy in the summer. We came silver in Korea. I had a dark, tough summer. I just basically golfed and hung out all summer, and I was a bum. and then honestly, it's literally like I just hit a day where I was like, hey, that's over. Back to real life now. Mm-hmm. I slept long enough, and but I'm very fortunate that I have people around me and a family that really cares about me, and a family that's really driven for success, that's calling me every day. What are you doing? How's this going? How are you feeling? And I'm so thankful that I think I can kind of snap out like that. But I know there's a lot of people that they go through a tough hockey experience, or they're going through the withdrawal of something that they really care about in their life. And if you don't have those people around you, and if you don't set a little goal every day, whether it's something stupid like I'm going to have a healthy breakfast tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And seriously, sometimes it can be that small. But if you don't have those people around you, you can just stay low for so long. And so right now I'm just taking this year to live healthy, make good life decisions, and really line up kind of the next, hopefully, 10 years of my life. What do I want to do? Do I still want to be an athlete? Do I want to work in business more? Do I want to do more speaking engagements? Pay it forward to the next generation? And we're going to hammer all that out. And I'd love to do a follow-up with you sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're going to figure all that out. But, that's kind of, it's part of the journey right now.
That's cool. And that's so exciting. So I guess that was part of what I learned about you online as well. And before we get into the fastest hand bike, which is insane, before we get into that, no, I didn't. I want to.
Cool. It's scary.
Before we get into that, is you've done some media stuff, and is that now? Do you think that's the next chapter of potentially of your life, is now getting into the media side of things? And also I heard that maybe not even just the broadcasting side, but the acting side, is that you think Hollywood's not too far away.
It's not too far. Everything is attainable. Oh man, no, I drive my girlfriend crazy. I just sit on the couch and do impressions all day. I think I use my real voice like twice a day. They're crazy. No, man, I don't take myself too seriously. I really don't. And the things I like talking about, I feel comfortable talking about. If you put me live on TV tomorrow and ask me about, some quantum physics, I'd really struggle, and I would hem and I would haw. But if you put me on live TV tomorrow and ask me about my thoughts on any hockey team, on any athlete, on anything like that, I really enjoy engaging in those types of conversations. So it's something that the fact that there's this profession out there where you can get up there and just give your opinion, articulate it well, work on it, you have to be comfortable and all that. I am intrigued by that whole side of the business. And I also, again, you can use so much of that stuff as a drive for change. You need a platform, though. You can't just open your laptop, scream into a microphone, and expect people to listen. And one thing
I've done that, though.
You're doing it well. Look at the guests you're getting.
Yeah.
But I just think that a lot of things I've done in my life have been for a platform. And so, I didn't really care about being the captain of a Team Canada. But then once I got it, I was able to impact so many people. And I was able to do so many things with it. If I wanted to fly to Vancouver or the East Coast and just meet a kid who was in a rehab hospital, well, I needed that captaincy on my jersey, and then all of a sudden I'm getting sent a plane ticket, come meet this kid. And that's the same as when I look at some broadcasting opportunities and careers, and it's something I'd love to do, but again, you can use that for so much good. All of a sudden you get the Twitter followers, and then you get that, and you're on camera, and again, you can push a little bit of your own thoughts and agendas, and I'm always intrigued by that. So anything that gives me a platform to do some good and give back a little bit, and at the same time have a little fun, I'm really attracted to those types of opportunities.
Cool. So now getting into this I've seen it at the gym, but I didn't know there was people tracking it and timing it. And so so is it you still have the record?
I don't. I would need to check it online. I know that there was a bike that came from England that tried to break it. And what we're talking about is this. We'll post a link. But it's like this. It's a hand bike, but you go inside like a tube, and it looks like an egg almost. And basically, it's an engineering contest. And so it's all these people who want to try to break land speed records. So you fly to Reno, Nevada, which is an interesting place to go. And then you get on a bus. I got on a bus at 1 a.m. in Reno, Nevada with some...
So you were picked? Were you handpicked to do this?
No, I kind of did them a favor.
Oh, okay.
And so basically, because it's scary, it's an extreme sport, but it's an engineering... It's a bunch of guys who are a lot smarter than I am who build these really advanced bikes. But there had never really been a fast one since for 20 years in the hand bike category. So these really good engineers. One of them worked at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Center. Mm-hmm. So they were two prosthetists. So they do a lot of great work for people with disabilities, building wheelchairs, building limbs, and they built this bike. But they built it for a guy that was a double-leg amputee, and he was a downhill skier. And I guess about a month before the race, he got injured and blew his shoulder out. So they spent tens of thousands of dollars building this really advanced hand bike to go break a world record, and they didn't have a driver. So I was like, hey, I'm pretty strong, and I'm missing both my feet. I'll do it. And so I went to a high school track, and I went around the high school track once. And I was like, okay, I think I got it. And the next thing I know, I'm at this bus stop in Reno, Nevada, taking another 3-hour. You go way north. It's called Battle Mountain, and it's the longest, flattest, smoothest piece of natural ground in North America. So that's where you go to set this record, and you get a 7-mile build up, and then they clock you for 200 meters, and you just try to hit that 200 meters as fast as you can. It's crazy because all you see on both sides of you is cactus. And there's the lines in the road. It's not one solid line, it's the dashes.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because you start out, you can see every single line, and then all of a sudden, because you can't feel how fast you're going in there, and then slowly the line just becomes a blur. So once that road in the middle of the pavement becomes a blur, I know I'm going pretty fast.
You're cooking.
You're just in a little tube that I don't think there's much protection in there. And if you go off to the side, you just go into cactuses and dirt. You're going 75 kilometers an hour with no gear on.
So was the tube supposed to protect you, or was that?
No, the tube's just supposed to cut down on wind resistance. But it's a really. We'll post a YouTube link because there's a video of it. But from far away, it doesn't look like I'm going very fast. It just looks like this weird egg on wheels. And then all of a sudden, it does this in front of your face. And you're like, oh, okay, there's something going on there. But it's scary, man. And then I remember, because again, the bike wasn't built for me. I was a little too big for it. It was built for a guy who's a little smaller than me. So my head, every time I came up, kept hitting the top. And you had to wear a helmet. And so every time my head would come up and keep hitting the top, so I didn't tell anyone this, but I would get in my bike, I'd start my race, and as soon as I was out of the start line, I would take my helmet off, put it beside me, and then I would do my run, and then before I came in and they
put it back
top off, I put my helmet back on and pretend I had it on all the time. So thank goodness nothing bad happened.
Yeah, seriously.
Everything I did, I I'm not scared of physical confrontation. I don't enjoy it at this age, but like I'm not scared of it. But then like if someone's like, go ski down that hill or go race that bike, I'm like, that's terrifying. I don't want to crash. So it was good. It was a scary experience, but again, it was once in a lifetime. I thought like it was, how cool is it to have an opportunity for something that I felt very lucky just to get subbed in to do it, right? Because they put in a lot of work. And
Exactly.
It's like a race car. All that stuff is, the driver's talented, but it's the engineers, it's the people that build it, and they spent the time, the effort, the money. I spent none of that. I just showed up and I was an engine. I was just an engine, and probably an engine that talks back way too much. we still stay in touch. The guys who booked the bike and I on my Facebook, and I wish them well every here and then. But
cool.
I don't know if we'll ever do it again. But it's a
well. I'm sure if you hear that the record's been beaten by a little bit, you'll be back up in Nevada tomorrow.
I'm old now. I don't know if I care as much. The things you do when you're like 23, 24, it's funny. I look back on that, and that would be a perfect example for me. I don't know if you could pay me right now to go race that bike again in the desert. Like I think I'm good. We'll see. If the record gets broken, we can talk.
Okay, perfect. I guess overarching in your life, have there been experiences where you've run into individuals that may have said something or done something that, not knowing your past, and have you ever called someone out, or has there ever been kind of confrontation that way? And the reason I ask is you would have no idea. Like you said, going down the street, the way you walk, what you do, like you would have no clue that you've been through what you've been through or from a young age, right? So has there been any scenarios like that?
I think maybe when I was younger.
Okay.
Not so much now, but I'm also at an age now where I just don't care. I don't pay attention to a lot of that stuff. And I think because I'm not the most visible disability, I have a different experience than somebody who lives every day in a wheelchair,
right?
Who faces a little more of the stigmas than I do. I remember there's a lot of I'll give you an example. Like the one thing I really wanted to do, and I don't know why, but like skateboarding was so popular when I was like 14, 15, and I just moved to Oakville. And that was like one thing that I really wanted to do was skateboard. And I'd try to ollie, and I think maybe I did it one time. I don't know. But it's just no ankle skateboarding. It is so hard. And I tried, and I'd like to say I became really good. I was so bad, and so I never really had a bad interaction with it. But it was just one thing where I'd be out there, and all your friends are just nailing tricks and doing stuff, and I'm just standing there, just kind of watching. Like, this is fun. And, there's stuff like that I think there's a fire that burns inside of you that, maybe I didn't show other people, but I go home that night, I'd carry that stress on me. Like, why couldn't I figure that out? Like, I'll never skateboard. And so there's stuff like that. And I think more so than bad interactions with people, I had just a lot of those internal fires that would just burn because you couldn't accomplish something. And then there's also the unnecessary stress that you carry. And I think back to, again, those formative years, kind of your young teens. And I remember thinking, am I going to be able to drive a car? I hope I can drive a car without hand controls. And it really stressed me out. And then I thought, okay, well, when I start dating, I hope girls like me. I hope I can attract a good-looking girl. And I'd spent so much of my time at age 12, 13, 14 thinking, I hope I can drive. And just those little things that the average person would never think twice about, I spent a lot of time just internally stressing about. And then I got to those ages. And I remember I went to a high school parking lot with my dad. And the day after I turned 16, I got behind the wheel of a car, put my foot down, I could feel the pedal just fine. And within 10 seconds, I was like, oh, I can drive no problem. And then, a year after that, I started dating a high school sweetheart, and she's a great girl and all that. And I'm like, so I spent all this time stressing, putting so much pressure on myself about what if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? And then as soon as I got to those ages, they weren't problems at all. And I was just like, oh, well, why did I spend all that time stressing? And so I think I kind of took those, and they seem like such simple lessons, but I think I was able to take some of that frustration as a kid. Why couldn't I skateboard? I hope I can drive a car. I hope a girl likes me. All those little things when you grow up with a disability, I think I just internalized them. I waited. They all worked out in the end. And now I try to take that with me day-to-day life, where it goes, hey, I don't know if I'm going to end up with this crazy successful job, this, that, but instead of sitting here stressing about it, keeping up at night, let's just wait and see what happens. Because if you do the right stuff, more often than not, things turn out pretty well for you. And so I think it's those little life lessons that you can take. But a lot of those conflict that I had were within me, were just me internalizing and what I think about when I put my head down at night. And those were always my toughest interactions, where it was me with myself and things that were going to happen that I knew were coming that I wanted to attack.
Wow. And in a scenario where maybe, like, that's incredible. I find regardless of what you're going through, that relates to so many different people of, at this point, what's going to happen if I don't succeed, etc. Well, let's wait and see what happens before we make these assumptions, right? In a scenario for you, and it doesn't even have to do with ability or disability, just in general for you in your life, when you get to a scenario where something doesn't work out, or maybe you can't do something that is out of your control, then how does that mental kind of conversation go in your mind? Or has there even been anything you haven't been able to do?
Oh man, so much stuff. I mean, the skateboarding one, but it's even right now I think about, I want to be a father, and I feel those same stresses coming back that I felt when I was a kid of, like, I want to teach my son how to skate, and I want to do all that stuff. And what if my kids want to do something that I can't do? That's going to bring out all those stresses again, And so that's what I think about now. So it's funny, you get older and things change, but they kind of stay the same as well. And so I do think about stuff like that. Past that, not really. I just kind of, what's nice too is as you get older, you get a lot more choice in your day to day. You don't have teachers telling you what to do, and I had some jerk teachers that I remember. We'd have like those track and field days. And I was always pretty athletic. Sorry if you can hear my dog there in the background. She's been so good this whole time.
She wants to get on. Yeah. She wants to say something.
Her name's Bailey. She's adorable. But no, man, it's I think back to like teachers I had, and we do like that track and field day at school. And I just remember being like, I'm a decent athlete. Like, I could run this 100-meter dash against these guys, but, like, I'm going to get smoked. Like, if they're times 10, I'm 15, which is not good. But it's like I would, like, lose marks for going to the teacher being like, I don't want to race that kid. And they're like, why? Because I know I'm going to get smoked. And it's not a pride thing. I'm just like, why are you putting me through this? Like, why are you making me do that? And so there's all kinds of, like, little interactions like that. But as you get older, you don't have to do that anymore. You get older, you don't have somebody who doesn't understand your situation forcing you into a bad situation. You don't have your parents, try this, it'll be good for you, you'll love it. And as much as that does play out well in the end, right now I don't do a thing that I don't want to do. You can't make me do anything. And so I do tend to put myself in positions to succeed. But the funny thing is just ask questions. Like everybody's so shy to have these open conversations. And I remember I did breakfast television one time talking about broadcasting, and no slam on breakfast television. But I remember, it's early. I get up at like 5 o'clock. I drive downtown Toronto, and I get there, and we're going live to air 10, 9, 8. And I walk out, and I go to get on the stage, and there's a big wooden ramp that they built up, and there's no chair. And there's just the host chair, and she's sitting there waiting for me. We were right about to go live to air. I was like, where do I sit? Like, oh, we thought you were in a wheelchair. So they built me this whole ramp. I was like, all you had to do was ask. Like, if you just asked me. So like 3, 2, and then they throw a chair down. I sit down, and bang, we're live. And so there's like little things like that. Where I'm like, wow. If you just had reached out to me and said, hey, like, what do you need? What would make this a good situation for you? What helps you feel comfortable? I'd say just a chair. We're good.
Yeah.
And so they went through so much more effort to make me feel comfortable, and they could have just asked me. And so stuff like that, conversations like that, where, never just assume.
Yeah.
Because I've had so much stuff in life where I'm super comfortable with just the natural. I don't need anything specially done for me, but people are scared to have that conversation.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good example. I'm going to use that more and more as what the theme of this whole thing is, asking those questions, but also asking them in a way where it's open and honest. It's, hey, I don't know. All right. Like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you, because I want to know what can I do to help, or what are your needs?
You're around that all the time. Like I see some change in that, in the ability to talk, especially mental health stuff. Like, this year when we lost it at the Paralympics, and we had the lead 1-0, and they tied up with 30 seconds left to go in a gold medal game, and then we lose in overtime on the first shift, and so that all of a sudden that was a 30-minute span of really, you work so hard to get to that point. And so this summer, a lot of our teammates had tough summers, whether it was drinking too much, doing just bad behavior and all that. But I noticed a difference between 10 years ago. I don't think I ever would have talked to a teammate about, like, hey, how are you? Like, where are you at right now? Where are you in your on your way back? Where are you in that transition? And I found this summer more than any summer, and even now, I'm having more conversations with younger guys who are in their 20s who, man, they'll openly say, I was really depressed this summer, and I needed to work through it, and I seeked help. And the guys who did that, I'm really proud of.
Well, it's also people like yourself too, being not everyone with a specific situation they're dealing with, and I don't like using the word struggling with, because I've heard too many incredible people that have been through things and they don't even, it's like struggling. No, I'm not struggling. I have to do things a little differently. So I don't even say that, but people that have been through things, talking openly about it, which isn't necessarily easy. And it starts with having conversations like this. So I can't thank you enough for.
Honestly, I just love talking sports. I love talking to people. I'm like, you know how people like, there's people that like to research success and all that. Mm-hmm. I love that. I've always loved autobiographies. I've always just loved, like, I like to know people's story, and I get wrapped up in, I think that's why I really enjoyed playing hockey for as long as I did, in team sports for as long as I did, is like, I'm into the storyline, if that makes sense. I want to see that 16-year-old kid. Does he end up becoming a future captain? Does he score a big goal? Does he become married with kids and a family man? And I get wrapped up in people's stories, and I want to see them be successful. And,
right.
And one thing that I always took a lot of pride in when I was in the leadership role was I always thought guys should go to school, and guys should get an education, and guys should work while they play on the team. And I think it's important to take all those life lessons and be a high performer in every aspect of life. And it's I still talk to a lot of guys I played hockey with, and just have open conversations. How are your kids doing? How's family? How's work? And so just this whole journey, I just get wrapped up in this, just people.
And I guess in conclusion, is there someone in your life, if you had to pick one person, maybe outside of family, that's made an impact on you?
Yeah, so many people. Obviously, and we spend a lot of time talking about it. I'm so obsessed with my teammates, and I'm obsessed with all this Paralympic world that I got thrust into. But there was one guy, I mentioned him briefly when I mentioned visiting Michelle in Alberta there. But my buddy Matt Cook, and I have a tattoo that's for him. And I lived with him when we were training together for the Vancouver Olympics. And he's just a friend of mine. He had the very same cancer as Terry Fox.
Okay.
And so basically, when Terry Fox lost his leg and then decided to run across Canada, Matt lost his leg and decided to join the sledge hockey team. And then when we were training, when we were living together, the cancer came back in his lungs. And it was inspiring, and I thank his parents a lot for this. I don't talk about it enough, but he was terminally ill. And they had every right for them to say, no, Matt, you're not going to, he was from Alberta. They had every right to say, you're not moving to Toronto with your buddies to play hockey for the last 8 months of your life. But they let him go. And so I got to spend that time with him, and it meant a lot to me. And so just seeing this guy every day, that he'd take his shirt off and literally scars down the middle, scars down the side. He looked like he was at a butcher shop. Like his body was hacked to pieces, and he was fighting to stay alive. He was a family man. He was a good teammate. If I wasn't the captain and he was still alive, I'm telling you, he would have been the captain. Like, he was the guy that I really looked up to. And I have so much respect for him. And ultimately, he passed away shortly after the Vancouver Games. And that was the toughest part of my hockey career. Was we came fourth place in Vancouver, which was the home games. So we came fourth place, which was to not even have anything to go home with was really weird. And then especially the pressure that comes with being a Canadian hockey team. All of that combined, and then 2 weeks after we come back from the worst hockey experience of our life, my best friend and roommate passes away. And he's just a guy that I watched how hard he fought just to stay alive, and how well he treated people when he felt poorly. And I remember having great conversations with him toward his last few days, and he was so concerned about, hey man, like, here's how much I have in my savings account. I want to buy my sister something, my brother something. And he's like, what kind of gift should I get them as a going away gift? I'm like, man, like, we're having this open conversation about what he's going to buy his family members when he passes away. And that's all he cared about. And then he left, before he passed away, he left a computer in his bedroom. And all he had on it when his sister opened it up was a playlist that said "Play at My Funeral," and he DJ'd his own.
No way.
He had the playlist done, and it was like, these are the songs I want played. And I remember I was all good, and then I remember there was one song on it as they like carried his casket, and I had given him that song reco, and that was the song that was playing, and I was a baby. I just started bawling. But to this day, one of the greatest honors I ever had in my life was the fact I got to speak at his celebration of life. And he's just a guy, sorry I'm going on, but he's just an incredible person. And I feel so bad that I got to do all this stuff. I got to be a captain. I got to travel. I got to go to all these games. And here's a guy that probably deserved every single one of those positive experiences. And he ends up passing away. And so I just, when you need a little perspective, I think about Matt. And I think about how hard he fought just to stay alive and how much he just wanted to be around his family and be good in the community. And he's just he's an amazing guy. And if you Google his name, Matt Cook in Edmonton, he has a foundation now. And his family set it up, and what they do is they help kind of that age demographic that kind of gets forgotten about in the medical world. And so Matt was really frustrated because he was over 18, so he didn't qualify as a kid, but he wasn't, And so he always felt very alone going through his cancer treatment because he'd be in the hospital beside a 70-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh, right.
He never really felt comfortable. And so his foundation's great. They buy like iPads, blankets, and they just try to make that age demographic who aren't covered as childcare as comfortable as possible in the hospital, and they take the packages and try to make their stay a little more comfortable. And I like that. He's not trying to cure the world's problems. He's just trying to make people who are fighting and battling, he's just trying to make their life a little bit better. And I think there's a great story in that, and I'm so happy I got to live with him and get to know him. And
his legacy obviously lives on, and I'm glad you shared that. That's really neat. Well, cool. I think that's everything. That's been awesome. Thanks again for taking the time, and we'll post a picture with the pup here and get that on social media. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh man, anytime, man. I appreciate everything you're doing. I really do.
That brings us to the end of another Heroic Minds podcast. If you have any feedback, there's an email link in the description of this episode. Shoot me an email. Any constructive criticisms, open to chat. I love the emails I've been getting, the messages on social media. Keep that coming. And if you're enjoying these episodes, as always, feel free to leave a positive review on whatever platform it is you're listening on. That would be greatly appreciated and keep this podcast moving in the right direction. I'm Ben Finelli. This is the Heroic Minds podcast. We'll talk again soon.